Here we go. Who's already out? Come on. Albert's out.
Cat.
Jack's out. DevConnect out.
What? Why?
Otto.
What happened?
Yeah, Milan, I remember, right? You were winning. You had won a few of the first royals that we had done for season one. Hopeful is out. Blank is out. Zoya is out. Milan is out. Where is Cedric?
I'm out.
You are?
Yeah, it was like the first
Oh,
round, something like this.
so I get to win. Am I still in? 10 left.
We will give away a season one
Oh,
avatar, right?
yeah. We can give
In the
yeah,
last,
in
in
the
the
last one.
last rumble, in the last
Yeah, the
rumble.
last one. Big Crypto slaying. Otto got revived. That's not bad. Mm-hmm. Cucumber for scale helps. Let's see. 8 players left. Karamolego's got some water. Prista was revived, also a previous winner. Otto is doing his best. Where am I? Why am I camping or have I been executed and missed it? I assume I'm camping. Somewhere camping. Hopefully. 7 left. Triple A Joe is out. Hopefully he's begging for a resurrection. Let's see. Okay, 4 people left. Who's left? AB Crony's here. You can do it. Who won? AB Crony won. Karamolegus,
Okay.
you heard them first. Hey, congrats. Hey. We took each other
Nice.
out. No, actually, you took me out. Hey, Karamolego, come on. I had a chance. Congrats.
Which one? Who won? Ah, okay,
Who
cool.
won? AB Crony won. Congratulations. Cedric will be.
Yeah, I will just share my screen and then send it over.
Yeah.
A
So, yeah.
second. So it will be like this fully equipped, what is it? Tanky Bulwark, right?
Tanky Bulldog.
So let me send it over.
From season 2, ready to go on missions and on-chain missions and adventures. A couple of weeks
It's
time.
season 2, this one. So let me see. And just like to give you a hint, this will be like the one for the last rumble. The season 1 pet avatar Evo Cat. Good.
Very nice. So season 2 ended on Friday. Very happy with how it went. Maybe Cedric, you can give a short overview of sort of how you felt everything went. And we can
Yeah, I mean, overall it went quite well. I think there was like a spike like the last 2 days, at least if I look at the treasury. It seems like a lot played or like minted like the last few days again to get like some X or whatever to push. So at least that was seen, and yeah, now it's closed. So what is remaining is you can still forge, you can build your pets, but there is just no new assets coming into the ecosystem of season 2. But overall, I think it was a very successful season, quite different to what we had like in season 1. But overall, I mean, I can share shortly my screen
Yep.
so you guys see what it was like. So we started like at the start of August, and we ended now end of October. And it was in the beginning quite steep in terms of minting. There was like in between, and then it laid down. But now the last 2 days we got like again a spike, but now as you see there was not one mint, obviously because it is closed. And I will also like start to do the statistics in like how many avatars are left over, because each time you forge, normally it like decreases the amount of leftover avatars. I also, maybe you have seen that we changed the market at this point to allow having eggs which are rare. So it's open now also for rare eggs, to make sure that people are able to like finish their epic stuff and also the Baju Berger eggs. We also opened up the armors for blue armors and also for the essences. So it's also now open for essences, but I see there are not that many essences. Yeah. So also like blue glow sparks and paint sparks are ready for trade. But it looks like essences is like what is the least available. But yeah, we opened up so everyone can trade on those. And yeah, I mean, that's it about around season two. I think overall it was around 1,500 different accounts playing. There is a remaining of 78,000 avatars, and we had a total mints of 1.5 million avatars. So overall, there were like 1.5 million avatars, which went into one of those mythical and fully equipped pets. So I think it's quite impressive from what you guys have been doing in the past 2 months.
Yeah. Maybe
Yeah.
just a short of from my side what I like. Again, we were working under the same restrictions, right? That it's a web browser only game that requires a wallet and requires a token balance, right? So we knew sort of the limitations. What we tried to achieve for season two is to add a lot more gameplay and see if we can attract how attractive this could be for an audience which would not be sort of the traditional, let's say, NFT type of game audience. So on the flip side, we saw that small number of really engaged users who enjoyed it, and it worked really well. One of the highlights I would say is that at its peak, it was commanding anywhere between 10 to 15% of the total transactions happening on Kusama network, at least according to the Talisman wallet. And yeah, I think for us it's a great stepping stone until the next one, where we try to remove a lot more of those initial barriers that we've put in front, like the wallet. So yeah, overall I would say super happy with how it went. So yeah, and yeah, maybe we can transition now also to our guests. And have a discussion. Maybe I'll do a quick introduction before I let it up to Francisco and you, Cedric, sort of to discuss. But yeah, it was I think a few months ago that we started first talking with the team at Tannsi and trying sort of to seeing what they were doing and how they were trying to create sort of a service which could be of great value not only to current power chains but also to teams thinking of building out in the ecosystem. And quite quickly, I think Cedric sort of jumped on the opportunity to experiment in testings, which is always great to have when you start talking with potential partners. And yeah, I think I'll let the rest for you. So, Francisco, thanks for joining us. Maybe you could give us sort of a short introduction about yourself and also about Tannsi.
Yeah, for sure. First of all, thanks for having me again. It's a pleasure to be here. In terms of myself, so yeah, my name is Francisco. I'm the CEO of Moondance Labs, the development company responsible for building Tannsi. In terms of my background, prior to starting to build Tannsi, I was part of the core team at Moonbeam, so I spent several years there, focusing my time primarily on ecosystem development and growth. And yeah, it was actually throughout the experience of Moonbeam that the idea for Tannsi came to be. We kind of experienced firsthand how difficult it actually is to build a parachain in the Sama ecosystem. You need to bootstrap a collator set, find out how to incentivize them, then you launch the chain and you kind of there's a bunch of like infrastructure maintenance that happens. Then you realize, you need wallets, block explorers, RPC endpoints, oracles, indexers. So there were just so many variables involved throughout the process of deploying the chain that ultimately it results, in teams taking months to potentially years to build like a fully equipped chain. So that's when we really started to speak with other builders, right? And I remember we spoke to the Ajuna team when we were just starting out Tannsi, and we spoke to many like Polkadot parachain teams, we spoke to Cosmos teams, Avalanche subnet teams, and after having dozens of conversations, pretty much every team that we spoke to could kind of relate to the same infrastructural friction points that we experienced. So that's really when we decided like, yeah, I mean, this thing, there's probably a real problem that we can solve here. Which is ultimately what led to Tannsi, right? So Tannsi essentially is an app chain infrastructure protocol that is designed to just make it a lot easier for developers to deploy and run their own chain. So it is like a layer one itself. Tannsi is a parachain that will help deploy other parachains or parathreads or as-you-go chains in the future. So that's really the idea, right? Like our thesis is that we want to offer the path of least resistance to developers so that the time to market goes from months to like a few hours, and then teams get to focus their time and energy on building the actual applications and the logic of the chain itself, which is what they want to do to begin with. So hopefully that will lead to more adoption, more growth within the ecosystem, and that's what we're here to do.
Yep, I think that's a great point, and maybe just to follow up on sort of your experience on Moonbeam. Obviously, Moonbeam was one of the first, if not the first, to get its parachain. How have you seen sort of this evolution of the parachain slots and potentially into sort of what we're going into this new sort of model of leasing block space, and sort of how does Tannsi sort of help in all of this onboarding, let's say?
Yeah, for sure. I think, the whole idea with Polkadot was very innovative at its time, right? This idea of having a network of chains that were each specialized and that they could then communicate with each other to have kind of a network effect. But, what we came to realize with Moonbeam is the way that Polkadot was designed in V1, you're kind of obligating developers to purchase all this block space, worth like 2 years worth of block space. And that represents like a big barrier of entry for a lot of teams, right? It's kind of the equivalent of a businessman or an entrepreneur who's starting off a business and he needs to purchase 2 years worth of inventory before having made his first sale, right? So a lot of teams, they would deploy, then they see that they don't necessarily have product market fit, and it's problematic. So now I'm very excited with this new model of Polkadot's like agile core time and pay as you go to be able to purchase block space on demand, right? That's going to significantly reduce the barrier of entry into the ecosystem. But I think in my mind, there's still going to be like complexity in terms of how you use the technology, right? And that's where Tannsi is meant to facilitate that. I think Parity has done a great job in building the tech, but what we want to do is improve the developer experience, right? So that with Tannsi, you can use the protocol to access block space on demand, or whether you want a parachain or just like an on-demand chain, to do that like in a couple of clicks, right? In a very developer-friendly UI where you have all the tools that you need to run the infrastructure itself. Because right now teams are kind of, they have this responsibility of managing all the infrastructure themselves that's not necessarily the specialty of many of the teams, right? They just want to focus on their specific use case, whether it be gaming like Ajuna or DeFi or real world assets. So we just want to kind of abstract away those friction points from the developer. And Polkadot is moving in the right direction. I think parathreads or pay-as-you-go chains, agile core time is very complementary to Tannsi. I mean, honestly, the project was originally conceived with that concept in mind. We just didn't know when it was going to ship to production. So we didn't really want to wait around until that happened. So we just started work on parachains, since that's what's live, and then we'll kind of adapt and incorporate both models within like the Tannsi protocol.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's super interesting, and maybe I can bring Cedric sort of in this conversation, because this is something that we as a Ajuna network have been facing also since day one, right? Sort of two networks, starting with Kusama, and now sort of we're transitioning and preparing for our main network, and how we handle all of these resources. is something that's been sort of constantly at the forefront. So yeah, maybe Cedric, you can
Yeah.
share sort of how we got interested in starting to start experimenting with the team from
Yeah.
Tannsi.
Yeah, I mean, like looking a little bit at the background of this infrastructure, just what was just mentioned before, we as Ajuna, we maintain like, I would say 4 active environments, which are product like always like running, and another one which is like on demand, and that starts with the on demand solo chains which we spin up to test like initial pellets and like front end integrations. And then we have like our first test net which is like on polka.js available, and then we do have like the integration test which is like on Rococo, which already has then the first collator set and RPC and boot node. And then afterwards, you have the Kusama network with the collators, which is already a production ready environment with collators, RPC, redundancy, and so on. And then we have like the Polkadot environment, which is then even also like a similar environment as Kusama, which is the most productive ready one or the productive one. So overall, this creates a massive amount of infrastructure, which needs a massive amount of money to maintain, and also a massive amount of monitoring and human resources that are able to manage them and to get into it. Like you normally don't do that manually, so you use something like Terraform, Ansible, and so on. So that's quite a specific know-how that you need to maintain this. And I think that was one of the key things where I think Tannsi has like a really great addition, and it's a really great service because it just like can like take this whole stuff away from us and maintain it as a service. And for them, it's easy because they can like reuse their knowledge to maintain this. But for us as parachain, it's something which we need to like buy in, right? And it's also so that normally if everything is like set up correctly, you don't need like a full DevOps team to maintain it at some point if you did it well. So you could share like those persons with other teams, and or the better way is like to outsource it in a way that you only maintain the like most productive ones. So for us it was like to elaborate if, for example, a test network like Rococo would be not needed anymore, or if we could use it as an infrastructure provider on Polkadot. It also depends a little bit on Tannsi, on what kind of development environments they will provide. I mean, I know at this point that you will provide like the Polkadot environment, but are you also like providing a test environment which could, for example, like mitigate like our test networks or something like this?
Yeah, that's a good question. So right now we have the testnet dance box, which is essentially running within like Moonbase Alpha. So we're Moonbase Alpha is a separate like Polkadot environment with a full-on like relay chain validators, a bunch of parachains and collators. But we're actually about to launch like our own like DevNet environment, which is the same, but it's going to be a lot easier to like spin up a chain. And for us, it makes it a lot more cost efficient, right? Because this is a problem that we're encountering. I mean, it's not a problem, it's just a reality, right? That in the testnet, everything is free and we're running the infrastructure. So, and we have a lot of demand, right? So we're trying to find ways to make things more cost efficient and more scalable, automated. So this is why we're kind of building a separate network, which will allow teams to, I mean, a lot of teams just want to try it out, right? So you can spin up a chain for a couple of hours or a couple of days, just try it out and then kill the chain. And like you said, Cedric, you can use whatever templates you want. So yeah, we want to make kind of a more flexible testnet environment that will allow for us to service all of the demand of the registration requests we're getting. Because right now we have many, like we have over 100 requests from developers and teams wanting to deploy, and our team is like completely at capacity in terms of engineering resources, and we're just kind of scrambling internally now to be able to service the demand, and I think this new environment is going to help to do that.
That's awesome. Yeah, I mean that would probably be like a really good fit for like mitigating our infrastructure costs in the development environment, and hopefully also like in the production environment, because in
Yeah.
fact, yeah, sorry.
Yeah, sorry to interrupt, but I was about to, like, the point you made on Rococo as well is true, right? Like we're starting to interact with parachain teams like Ajuna, that I mean they wanna like offset that, like, all the infrastructure for testing, right? So like instead of running on Rococo, once we have this like new DevNet environment, I mean you can anyway do it on Dancebox today, but once we have this new DevNet environment, I hope that we can become kind of the go-to platform for teams to test, right? Instead of using Rococo, you don't have to spin up collators, you don't have to spin up anything. All you do is launch your substrate runtime in our environment, and it runs like out of the box with Tannsi, right? So, and hopefully it'll become the same in mainnet. So yeah, I think this approach is also valid, of us becoming kind of the standard to test in substrate.
Yeah, I mean, that would already mitigate a lot of costs on our side, to be honest, and also a lot of time that we spend to resync collators, monitor, set them up, and so on, and also like shift them to other providers and so on. So yeah, that is like very interesting. Now, one thing that came to my mind, and that's just a question out of curiosity, is like, what is like the main target for Tannsi? Is it like small products or like single developers? Is it bigger teams that already have like a running product like for production? And how would they like the question in the end is like, how do they compete also with like Moonbeam and A-Star? Because I mean, at some point they it's also like an offer for your own chain for your product with your own gas fee and so on. So it is also in competition with Moonbeam, or isn't it? So, or
Yeah,
yeah,
I actually get this question asked a lot. And sorry, what was the first part of your question that was
what
kind
is
of separate?
the
Yeah.
main target for the production environment?
Yeah, I mean, right now we're seeing like a very broad distribution of the team types, right? We're seeing like individual developers that have an idea that just want to try it out and want to try to build it on Dancebox, which is what Tannsi is meant to be, right? Like, I think this is one of the biggest problems on Polkadot today, that the barriers of entry are so high that to even take a shot at like being successful, it's very difficult, right? So like the percentage of teams that actually get to take a shot is very low, and then there's this like pent up pressure on all the existing teams to succeed, when I mean, at the end of the day, it's more likely that like a team will fail, right? In general, in business and Web3. So I think Tansi's job is to like make it very easy to at least take that shot, and then the market will ultimately determine whether you succeed or fail. But I think it's our responsibility to make that possible, for teams to try it out, right? And we're seeing like across the board, it's established teams that are looking to migrate to have their own chain because they want more value capture and the economics around having their own token being the underlying gas token. Other teams that need it because of the customization. So they have specific requirements that they need customized that are better suited for having their own chain versus a shared EVM environment like Moonbeam, which is just harder to customize. A lot of them are doing it for sovereignty and to have their own governance mechanism, which is a big deal for a lot of developers. And I said, I mean, we're seeing a lot of individual developers, smaller size teams that are just trying things out, which is great to see. And in terms of Moonbeam and Astar, I get this question asked a lot, like it's competitive and whatnot. I actually think it's complementary. I think Tannsi needs like Moonbeam basically, because Moonbeam is able to service certain use cases that Tannsi cannot, and vice versa. So for example, like the liquidity that Moonbeam has built in DeFi venues is going to be very difficult to replicate for a lot of teams that are just starting their own chains from scratch, right? So I'm starting to see like hybrid models, and I'm particularly excited by this because kind of making the decision of building smart contracts or building an app chain through Tannsi is not a binary decision, right? They're not mutually exclusive. We're speaking with some games that they want to access like Moonbeam's EVM infrastructure, like for example, the NFT marketplaces. They want to list their token on like DEXs that have active liquidity and that are being actively traded. But then specifically for on-chain games, they want to offload like the on-chain game logic to a container chain on Tannsi. Because what they tell us is like, particularly when a lot of components of the game are on chain, if gas prices start to go up, it can make the game like prohibitively expensive to play, right, for users. So this is why a lot of games want to have like dedicated sovereign block space for the actual game logic, but then connect back to Moonbeam via XCM to access things like liquidity, users, NFT infrastructure. And I think we're going to see this pattern more and more as time passes, where developers will want to offload specific like compute logic or workloads of their application. They can deploy contracts on Ethereum or these shared EVM environments that are great for assets and users, but then they can kind of access dedicated block space on demand via Tannsi, that it orchestrates that for them. This is where I see kind of Polkadot becoming, I think Polkadot is very well suited to become kind of like a Web3 styled AWS, right? Where developers can access decentralized compute power on demand, but they can still get access to these other environments. So I think those are pretty exciting use cases that we're starting to see.
Yeah, that sounds super interesting. And they will communicate back with Moonbeam, for example, with XCM, or I mean, at some point, yeah.
Exactly, with XCM, and we're also leveraging like Moonbeam routed liquidity, right? Like one of the biggest problems of having your own chain is like how do you connect to external ecosystems like Ethereum mainnet? When we spoke to a lot of Cosmos teams in particular about this, like getting like well-established bridges like Wormhole or Axelar or Layer Zero to directly integrate with your chain is extremely difficult, right? Unless you're a very established chain with a lot of like KPIs and metrics to back it up, they're just not going to integrate your chain. So that remains, you either have to build the bridge yourself or remain unconnected. With Tannsi container chains, by connecting to Moonbeam via XCM, you get to access Moonbeam routed liquidity, right? So you'll be able to connect to Ethereum, Polygon, basically any chain that Wormhole, Axelar, and Layer Zero are connected to. And this is a pretty powerful concept, right? Having out of the box like bridging to all of Web3 for early stage teams. And that's uniquely enabled by our architecture, right? So I think that's also pretty cool.
Oh, that's awesome. Cool. And my last question, which is also like also from Ajuna's side, how is like, or when, or how are you gonna create the price model? Or I mean, that's probably one of the most important questions overall,
yeah,
right?
for sure. And given the importance of this topic, we're working actually with the Gauntlet team. So Gauntlet is a great company. I mean, they work with the likes of like Uniswap and Arbitrum, Immutable X. They're like a quantitative modeling firm. So basically they're helping us determine, they run like simulations and models to determine what are the correct levels of inflation, what is the correct level of incentivization to the collators, but also on the payment model, like given that Tannsi is going to be a fully permissionless protocol, how do you actually pay like Tannsi collators to produce blocks for your chain? So I think we're boiling it down to like a model similar to EIP 1559 on Ethereum, where there's going to be essentially like a base fee to pay in Tannsi tokens. And then there's going to be a variable fee determined by like the network demand and the amount of chains running. But I mean, similarly, how you need like Glimmer to execute a smart contract on Moonbeam, it's going to work somewhat similar on Tannsi, where you'll need to like burn Tannsi tokens for like Tannsi collators to produce blocks on your chain. And then it's kind of similar to AWS credits, right? The more blocks, a given amount of credits that you have will guarantee you X amount of blocks. But as you said before, Cedric, I think it's going to be more cost efficient and more convenient, right? It's going to save you a lot of time versus having to hire like DevOps engineers to run your infrastructure and the headache of like setting up the collators and maintaining them and all these things. So it's kind of similar to this transition that happened in Web 2 when instead of running all the infrastructure yourself for an application, then like AWS came along and just made it a lot more efficient to run your infrastructure on the cloud, right? So I kind of see this transition happening in Web 3 today.
Yeah, I mean, that is one of the key things which we are looking for, to like get away with the non-dev part of development. So like getting away like with the infrastructure work in main. So like to get that outsourced in a way where we can we can focus more on like the main purpose of Ajuna. And I think for that purpose it's super interesting, so I'm very much looking forward to this and to see how Ajuna can profit from like specializing that knowledge in Tannsi and like outsourcing it from us.
Yep.
So cool. Yeah. Awesome.
Sure.
Maybe.
Yeah, no, and we've very much enjoyed like engaging with your team. You guys have been awesome. So yeah, I mean, I really enjoy the collaboration, and the feedback is really valuable. So we'll look to work closer with people in the ecosystem and teams in the ecosystem. So thanks a lot for that as well.
Yeah.
Hey,
And I
thank you.
think it's also an interesting use case for the Unity SDK, because I mean, all the developers or like those smaller teams that will use or run on Tannsi, they can just integrate their app chain into Unity and create like a very small, like a very like specific product which has its own app chain, its own front end, and it runs all on the blockchain, right? It would be like a very, yeah, I don't know how to say in English, but like a very condensed environment, which already leads to a product without like overlapping resources. So I could really imagine that this can evolve in like a small team creating a very cool product on top of Tannsi inside of Unity.
Yep. Um, I'll
Yeah,
take a couple
thanks
of
for that.
questions, maybe from the audience for you. So, can a project run its own node along with some nodes on Tansi, or all the nodes have to be in Tansi? That's from Ganjan. And the second question, so you can take them together, was will there be a Tansi token or a parachain? Which I think you've answered.
Yeah, so sorry, and the first question was related to what? Do you need to like, do we need to run all the nodes ourselves, or was that the question?
It was, can a project run its own node along on Tansi?
Yeah, I mean, it depends for what use case, right? Like, um, that is like one use case we're exploring where some of the teams we speak to want like a permissioned collator set. I mean, Tannsi itself is meant to be fully permissionless, right? So like anybody can run a collator, come and join the waiting list of like the collator set. Ultimately, like the top X amount of collators in terms of staked value will get into like the active set. So anybody can run a node, and if you do your job poorly, then you'll get slashed. But then, yeah, there's teams that might want like permission collator sets, right, to be like regulatory compliant, and those are things that we're exploring as well. So if a team wants to run their own node, they can also do that. It's just a different model, right? Or they can kind of engage with us for us to run the collators for them, or to help like coordinate the running of the collators that they want. Um, but yeah, it's a different model. I think that model is more popular today, right? And
Yep.
I think it's just more difficult to like build a permissionless protocol that will automate the execution environment. And I think this is also like a competitive advantage that Tannsi has, because most competitors do that model, right? Where you're essentially paying a company to run it for you. But usually when you tend to like involve more and more like human labor and off-chain components, that tends to drive up the cost and like the time to market, right? So
Yep.
this is why we want to
Exactly.
automate everything to make it more efficient.
Nice, thank you. So yes, and as you mentioned earlier, it will be its own parachain with its own token. So yeah, Francisco, thank you so much for taking the time to join us and talk a bit about what you guys are doing at Tansi and how we're working together. It was our pleasure.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, you're more than welcome to stick around as we finish out our community call. And yeah, for the rest of you, go follow Tansi on social networks. There's a lot of cool stuff that they're doing, and we will also keep you updated about the stuff that we're doing together with them. So yeah, maybe Cedric, a quick. I don't know if we have any update right now for missions and quests, but everything looks pretty good right now. In a couple of weeks, I think we're gonna be ready to launch them, right?
So we have been quite busy, like the end of last week and this week, to try on Rococo to go in asynchronous baking on the 6 second, and yeah, so it didn't came along without
Hiccups.
bigger stuff. So yeah, I mean, it's Rococo. You have to try it out. Asynchronous backing, just like to give you like a short insight, it's using like an experimental flag, and in our release build, somehow we mitigated experimental flags. So that meant that what we were building, which had experimental, was not released with experimental, which ended up in putting us in a situation where we somehow like failed in the runtime upgrade. So we had to do like some stuff here, and we are still trying to get to asynchronous baking with 6 second to get like our block times in 6 seconds. But that's an ongoing thing. And the missions and quests, they are waiting that we finalize the first set of quests with Theo together, and then we do like the economical simulations also to make sure that the Bayun treasury is not like emptied in the first 2 days. And then we will launch once we go on Kusama with asynchronous baking. So at this point, I think Kusama is still not updated. So anyway, we will need to wait. So on that point, we will see probably more ambassadors being able to test out the missions and quests as soon as we have the set ready to go out with them.
I'm seeing Claire from the team to join, but I can't find her in the audience for some reason. I'm looking, but I will let you know. Yeah, I don't know if we have
Yep.
anything else for missions. If not, I think we can move forward. Short update, as I mentioned also in the beginning, part one has been completed and executed of the Treasury proposal. Now it's down to, first of all, the contractual obligations that we have, and then it's down to the work that Cedric, right, and sort of the team are going to put in completing both the SDK and the documentation associated with it. Our target is hopefully by the end of the year that we can have everything up and running, and we focus our attention right now on part two, as all of you know. A quick update, which was quite positive. We're having some people from Parity BD team who have already hopped on and looking to support it. So we will make some amendments to the current discussion to add those members in the proposal that we would be putting forward. Yeah, I think it's to be honest really important that we continue down this path and get this gaming vertical operational. So yeah, I think that's it from our general updates, and I think we can have our Rumble Royale to end our community call with a season 1 awesome Ajuna avatar. We are pretty excited to tell you about what's coming up, but
Yeah.
not yet, but pretty happy.
One of the ambassadors will have the lucky chance to have a sneak peek on it. So yeah, let me run the battle now.
There we
When
go.
finding
Hit those
arms.
little swords, and we can sign up for it.
Finding yeah. So if there is like concerning like the filters, I like it's an issue with the filters at this point. So what kind of filter would be like really helpful, like a pet filter? Like so you could filter the armors by pet rarity and pet type. Okay, good. I will ask Theo if that is, because we are currently really full on the next one and also on the missions, and it's not like that we have like too many resources available. So, but if that is like something, we probably are able to implement that quite fast. Let me check inventory. So that would mean for the armory in the market, we would add pet type and rarity type. Similar that as we have it in the inventory, right? Good. I will do a ticket for this.
Also,
in
part 2
Jira.
of the proposal progress. There's not, I would say, a lot of progress in the sense that there's been a few teams that have reached out to us to see how they can support, and as I said, a few people from Parity. I think at this point it's just trying to get as many comments inside in the discussion part, and then Cedric and myself are going to take it back, fine tune it, and aim to launch it in the next, I would say, couple of weeks. As a proper treasury proposal. Yeah, it's good that we shouldn't delay, right? Because
the new listing, yeah. So as part of a settlement for the like fail of the Huobi listing in 2022, we got like this like we had like in the settlement that we got to get a free listing on Poloniex beside like the returning of the listing fees. They returned like the agreed part on the listing fees, but they haven't like done the free exchange listing so far. But they just mentioned previously that they are in the middle of it. So
Yeah.
I would take that as it is, not like exactly. It's like,
A pinch of
yeah, I
salt.
mean, we have we had like really bad experience with Huobi, so I'm not gonna
Yeah.
put anything on top. If it's happening, it's good. If not, we will see.
"12 people left.
7. It's already
7
further.
now. Big Crypto. Otto still in. He ate Graphico. It's a bit violent. Let's see, 7 people left.
Isn't
Hey,
today
hey.
like Modern Warfare coming out?
It is?
The campaign, and tomorrow it's Rumble, Warcraft Rumble, right?
Oh, tomorrow it's
Tomorrow it's BlizzCon, right?
tomorrow it's BlitzCon. Tomorrow it's also, I think they're re-releasing Fortnite Season 1, the initial sort
Oh,
of game. So,
you
hey,
will
but
jump in. I'm not like a
no, on
Fortnite
Fortnite,
guy,
I
but
mean, my son is going to force me. I mean, he's not forcing me. Of course, I'll jump in if he tells me. But hey, maybe we should play the. I should buy the Call of
but
Duty and we should
the
play it.
campaign would be awesome, and I
Is it
think it's
co-op?
today, right?
It must be
If
co-op
I,
also. Okay, we'll search.
yeah,
Maybe we do it tonight.
yeah, that would be awesome.
Who took
We
me
have
out? DevConnect. Come on. Why 24 daggers? That's a bit excessive. I became a human pincushion. And 5th, DevConnect. You slayed me. You won. You deserve it. Concussion. Congrats to DevConnect for the season 1, the OG of OGs, right? The season 1 also Ajuna avatar. And all the participants. Hey, thanks again to the team from Tannsi who joined. I think overall it's really cool what they're doing, and all of these activities that we're seeing from other teams like us trying to. And here's your awesome Ajuna avatar that Cedric is sharing. Activities that can attract talented builders who want to build real applications and real use cases on Polkadot is something we are all striving towards. So it's always great working with teams like that. Thank you all for joining today. Thank you for participating in season 2. We quite enjoyed it, and we're prepping now for our on-chain missions. So for us, that's also a very exciting moment. It's a completely sort of different and new product. We're taking it through its pacing with testing. Probably we will be also the first ones on asynchronous backing. So
Yep.
that's it. Hey, everyone, have a great afternoon. Enjoy the weekend, and we'll see you next week.
Hey, see you everyone. Bye bye.
Bye bye.